Hi-ho, everybody. I'm Michael. This is a book review for Muppets Meet the Classics, number 2, Fairy Tales from the Brothers Grimm. So in this book, it's just a bunch of fairy tales from the Grimm brothers, and it's acted out by the various Muppets. So the cover is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but this book calls it Snowdrop. In fact, all of the fairy tales I knew had different names in this book. Like, for example, Cinderella, which is Camillarella. It stars Camilla. And Gonzo, Miss Piggy is the villain in a lot of these ones, so she's the evil stepmother. And then Andy and Randy Pig. Anyway, the point I was trying to make, it's Cinderella, but based on Ash Puddle, not Cinderella. And then, well, I guess the Frog Prince. They already did a Frog Prince, didn't they? I'm told there's like an hour-long special Muppets Frog Prince. And there's also Hey Cinderella, the Muppets Beasts of Bremen, Tales from Muppet Land. So there's a lot of Muppet fairy tale movies, basically, which I haven't seen because they're not on Disney Plus. I don't know where we could watch them. There are also a bunch of Muppet fairy tale stuff. In Sesame Street, Kermit the Frog, he was a news reporter. Hi-ho, I'm Kermit the Frog here, reporting live for Sesame Street News. I'm here interviewing Rapunzel. Ooh, I believe there's Prince Charming now. That sort of thing, right? He did a bunch of those sketches on Sesame Street. So let me get back to the point I was making. Let's see. So, here's another one. Red Cap. That's Little Red Riding Hood. I actually thought this was a really good story. I like the story of Fozzie. Fozzie works really well as Little Red Riding Hood. And the bad guy was Spam, who's one of the pigs from Muppet Treasure Island. And that's sort of the case with just this entire book in general, is you're going to see a lot of obscure Muppets in here. There are Muppets I had never heard of before in this book. And I think that's because we've got 18 different short stories, so the author could really go to town with all the various characters. Of course, there are a bunch of characters that reappear, like Miss Piggy ends up being the villain in a lot of pieces, because a lot of fairy tales have evil stepmothers. And I gotta say, I kind of feel like she works well as a villain. She also works well as a leading lady, but if she's being like this evil, self-centered villain, that kind of works for her. Whereas Janet as the heroine, not Janet, Janice. Wow, I'm sorry, I got her name wrong. She's the heroine. She's okay. It feels weird to have her be by herself as the main character when really she's more a member of the group, really. She's part of the band. That they're really a group ensemble, so that dynamic doesn't quite work. But here's the thing that I just talked about. Well, Janet's like the main character in like 2 of the stories. So Piggy's in a lot more. And and again, Sleeping Beauty. This is called Briar Rose instead of Sleeping Beauty. So I wonder why they didn't use like the more popular names for the fairy tales in this book, especially considering that it was published when Disney owned, Disney still owns the Muppets right now. So you'd think like there was in the Hansel and Gretel story, Uncle Deadly sings the song from The Little Mermaid. Les poissons, les poissons. I can't sing anymore. Yep, if I sing anymore, I'll get sued by Disney. So I'm stopping right there. So I kind of wish I had gone with the Disney titles, and that's something I've seen a lot of people on the internet say. It's like, why don't they do Disney Muppet remakes? Forget these live-action remakes of Disney movies. I want to see Muppet remakes of Disney movies. Particularly people say Beauty and the Beast would be great for a Muppet movie. And I agree. I think it would actually be... That would be an awesome series at Disney Plus if, they had... They adapted all the Disney princess stories with Muppets. And, yeah, it could be cool because they could get the actors or actresses from the movies to be in the Muppet remake. So, you could get Idina Menzel in the Muppet version of Frozen. That would be fun. Most of the Disney princesses are still around, the actresses, yeah. Anyway, so if you're the person if you're the kind of person who thought, hey, Muppets, Beauty and the Beast, that would be something I'd see, this would be a great book for you, because it's basically that. It's all these famous short fairy tales with Muppet characters, because there's a lot of different stories. Pretty much all the various Muppets get to be in it. So some of them I don't think worked so well. Like, I like Sweetums, but the Sweetums story is Faithful John, and I've never heard of that fairy tale before. I didn't think that worked so well. Another one I didn't think worked so well was this one, Lazy Hines. It's based on Lazy Hines. It stars Clueless Morgan and this Dorothy Bovine. So I feel like they're obscure. Those are obscure Muppets, really. I didn't know who they were, and so that story really fell flat for me. But here's the thing, because there's so many stories, and this is only 5 pages long, it doesn't really matter. You can move on to the next one if you don't like it. I like this one, the frog that likes the fish, based off The Fisherman and his really his kind of mean wife. In this case, it's Kermit and Piggy. And the fish was Clifford, who was in the Muppets Tonight TV show. So I thought that was an interesting joke. But Piggy just asks for awards. It's like, oh, I want an Emmy, and I want a Grammy, and I want a Newbery Award. And Kermit says, wait, that's for good children's books. Have you read this book? We're not getting an Emmy. And I thought that was such a hilarious joke. It made me laugh. The jokes in general are really good. Mostly puns. A lot of puns. It is pun heavy. If they did this in real life, if they adapted these books in real life, which they've done with some of these stories, like Rumpelstiltskin, they did a Muppet production, I think there would be more visual humor involved. But because it's a book, it doesn't really have visual humor. So mostly a lot of puns and references and things like that. And I love how the story ends, where Piggy asks for a Tony. That's her last request. And Clifford's like, how dare you disrespect Broadway plays like that? He gets mad and just gives up. That's funny. Yeah. So I'd say I've heard most of these stories before, and then some of them were variations. Like this one is basically, what is it? Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. That one, yeah. The two brothers in a mountain of trouble. And I thought it worked really well. That's basically the same basic idea. Is, we've got a bunch of thieves that have a trove of treasure, and you have to say the magic words just right in order to get in and out of the magical treasure trove. So that's Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. I'm sorry. Yeah. Overall, I'd say it's good. I'm kind of disappointed they stopped the series here. Actually, I actually think this is kind of better than the first book in the series, Muppets Phantom of the Opera, which worked well, but the fairy tale setting works a lot better for the Muppets. The fact that it's a group of short stories works well too. I feel like, I don't know, maybe this was a bit too high of a reading level. Maybe if this book had been like marketed at younger kids, it would have worked better. But this is like a 230 page book. It says it's for young readers right here, but I don't know what age group that this was marketed for. Yeah, I feel like they should have aimed for the same age group that has the abridged classics, if you've seen those books, where, they just take like a classic novel, like something by Charles Dickens or something, and they have like illustrations every 1 to 2 pages, and it's a lot simpler words, just retelling these old books for younger children. And those tend to hit the sweet spot where you can read them to little kids, but also kids who are able to read on their own and read that reading level, they also enjoy them. So it hits the sweet spot of being in a fairly large age range, as opposed to, say, like these books, which are designed for little kids. And I doubt anybody beyond like 2nd or 3rd grade will actually be reading them. Whereas, those abridged classics, I feel like those go up all the way to 4th, 5th grade. I don't know why I'm debating this in my book review. Anyway, I thought it was fun. I'm kind of sad that the series ended. Wish they had done more of this series, because that's the end of the Muppets Meet the Classics. Although I understand they did more adaptations like Muppets Robin Hood, Muppets Peter Pan, Muppets Sherlock Holmes, but those switched over to, those were like graphic novels, right? And I feel like maybe that would have worked better. Maybe that's why they decided to go away from having like these larger books and then move towards doing graphic novels. I don't know. I still really wish they would do like a Muppets series where they adapt all the famous Disney movies, because that could be a lot of fun, and they could have a lot of fun cameo appearances by the actual people who helped make those movies. That would be great. Just like, you know, half-hour series. I mean, that'd be good. Don't know why I'm doing a pitch here in the middle of my Muppets review, but yeah, I thought it was better than the previous one. I thought it was a bit more creative. Some of the stories fell flat, but it didn't really bother me that much. I'll just skip over them the next time I reread this book. And, oh, the Frog Prince, too. That's an interesting one, because they did a Frog Prince. I mentioned that. They did a Muppets Frog Prince, yeah. So, overall, good book. Good idea. I liked it. Thanks for watching my review. Sorry I got all rambly and just talked about all my various Muppet ideas here. Also, everybody wants to see Muppets Princess Bride. When is Muppets Princess Bride going to happen? That would be awesome. Yeah, it's kind of cool having the more obscure Muppets. Although with the Penguins, I don't know, would I have done the Penguins for Muppets? Here's the weird thing, we've got like several versions of Muppets Snow White, because we do have the Muppet Snow White book, the graphic novel that I mentioned. There's also, in one of the Muppets Babies books, they have like all the various fairy tales, and it's kind of fascinating to go through that and compare the cast from the Muppets Babies books to the actual one, because they did Wizard of Oz. And they also did Treasure Island. And then the Muppets have actually done Wizard of Oz and Treasure Island. So that's just interesting. So, I mean, clearly Muppets Meet the Classics was just... And it's a good idea, because the Muppets do so many adaptations of great literature and such. Okay, I'm rambling. Bye, everybody.